Well, hello everyone. My name is Miss Jessica and welcome to our art history review. So today we're going to begin with the Stone Age. That was our first recorded area of art, and so we need to begin at the beginning. This is going to be for all of our ancient art, all the way from Stone Age to Roman. And so I want you guys to watch these videos. Now, some things I recommend is to watch it many times. We don't always just learn the first time. We have to repeat it over and over again. The second thing is I recommend writing it down somewhere. So you're going to see I'll write all of the things you know how to spell. So maybe write down all of the who, where, what, how, and why they created these things today as you're reviewing with me. And soon we'll be able to do our very first art history beat. All right, well, let's go ahead and learn about the Stone Age. All right, let's go ahead and begin with our first art history review of the Stone Age. We're going to begin with our who, then where, what, why, and how. So 5 different things we're going to learn about the Stone Age today. The first one is who. Who are the people we're talking about? And the people we're talking about are the Paleolithic people, or the era, and the Neolithic people, the Neolithic era. Now, these images help us know about each one. But in general, the Paleolithic was called the Old Stone Age, and the Neolithic was called the New Stone Age. The way I remember that is Neolithic and New start with the same letter. So when I see this word Neolithic, I remember, oh, that's the New Stone Age. And Paleolithic is the Old Stone Age. So this one came first and this was second. The Paleolithic people, let's talk about them. So if you remember some of those images we saw, we'll talk about a little bit later, they were inside of caves. The Paleolithic people lived in caves. They did a lot of hunting and gathering for their food. So that's a good thing to remember for Paleolithic people. They lived in caves and they gathered and hunted for their food. Where Neolithic people, they built structures. They didn't just live in a cave. They took rocks and they created their own houses and they farmed, just like you see here. They did not gather food anymore. They actually grew their own crops. So they built structures and they grew their own food. Those are going to be our 2 people for who. All right, let's go ahead and move into where. Where was the Stone Age? So I'm going to move all this out of the way for us. Now we're just going to talk about the where. Maybe you guys remember and are thinking about that, but the Stone Age was everywhere. It was all over the world. Maybe you guys remember that. There's some different Stone Age pieces all the way from China to France. And this is the one we're going to talk about today. Because in France, there was a cave. And there was a cave where they recorded everything called Lascaux. Lascaux, I wrote it down here for you another way to say it is the Lascaux Caves. So you can either say Lascaux or Lascaux. And people say it differently just because we're all from different places. But what I want us to remember today is France and Lascaux or Lascaux, whichever you would like to say that as. All right, so that's our where. Our where today is France, but also all over the world. We're going to move into our what. Now for the what, I have some images to show you, and we're going to take a look at those as well. All right, now we're going to move into our why. So why did the Stone Age people create the art that we just saw? And the first way is to communicate with people. They wanted to show people what they were doing. And that's really important because they could not write anything yet. So during this time of the Paleolithic and Neolithic, they could not write things out, so they drew pictures to communicate with all the people around them. And we can kind of see that today when we look at the images that they're telling a story. Awesome, that's our why, to communicate because they could not write. Awesome, you guys. Our last one today is the how. How did they create the art that we were looking at? And there was a couple different ways they created it, but the main ones we're going to talk about are charcoal, wood, dirt, and plants. So charcoal is what they used to draw on the walls. So if you saw those animal paintings, they used charcoal. Wood was what they carved out of, so they would create sculptures and statues made of wood. Dirt Because if you saw the handprints, they would blow dirt around it or use dirt to paint onto the walls. And plants is how they created their paint as well with the dirt. So charcoal, wood, dirt, and plants. Those are going to be the 4 things on how they created their art.
All right, so we're going to begin the what. What did the ancient Stone Age people create? We're going to begin with Paleolithic and move into Neolithic, old to new. This is actually a cave painting. So remember, the Paleolithic people lived in the caves of a bowl, and this is probably one of their main sources of food. And this is found in the Lascaux caves that we talked about, and maybe you remember, those were in France. But I want you to think about when you see a painting on a stone wall of an animal, that is probably going to be your Paleolithic time period. So that's our first art to look at today. The second one for Paleolithic is these hands. And I mentioned it briefly, but these hands, the artist would lay down on the wall and blow dirt or leaves or plants around it that would be colorful and lift their hand off, and they'd have a handprint left behind. It was their very own ancient stencil, which would just be their hands. And the last one to look at again is more animals. Remember, the Paleolithic people were the older ones and they just hunted a lot of food. And so if you ever see these lots of animal paintings, again, your odds are that it is going to be our Paleolithic. Now, I will show you these paintings during our finals art history bee as well, so make sure to keep these in your head as you're studying. We're going to now move into Neolithic. And our first Neolithic picture to see, you might recognize. This is Stonehenge. And Stonehenge is a very famous, I'm going to say structure found up towards Scotland in the island where Britain is. And no one is quite sure what it is for, but remember our Neolithic new era of Stone Age people, they created their own homes to live in. And so their structures would have looked something like this, with stones stacked on top of each other. So this is a really important Neolithic piece of art to look at because it gives us the idea of how they used and built their structures. Our last one to look at today, or excuse me, our next one I should say, is a sculpture. So if you think about new Neolithic, they were building houses and they did a lot of carving into stone. And that was a newer thing to do because their tools got just a little bit better. But what I want you to remember is their sculptures were usually in stone and they're pretty detailed. That actually looks like a bowl. It's not just a painting anymore. It moved into a new sculpture. So that's going to be one of the other things we'll remember today. And the last one for Neolithic is this bowl. So during this time, they started to do a lot of not gathering, but a lot of crops that they were growing and they needed to put things inside of them. This is actually from China. Ancient Neolithic Chinese pottery is actually very famous. And like I said before, it's from all over the world. So we went all the way from up by Scotland, all the way to China, and we're still in the Neolithic era. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed learning about what. Make sure to memorize all of these pictures.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed and learned a lot of our review for our Stone Age art today. There's going to be many more videos for us to learn, but don't forget to review this over and over again and get ready for the art history week. Well, my name is Miss Jessica, and I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.